Welcome to The Craft. I'm your host, May Globus. This podcast is a collection of intimate conversations on artistry, mastery, and life with talented, passionately curious creatives and entrepreneurs. Most are dear friends, some are those I've admired from afar. I hope you enjoy these conversations, this exploration of the humanity that connects all of us, as much as I do having them. Thank you for being here and for listening. Cultivate Tea co-founder Jude Wang is a man who is not only interesting, but interested. Sitting at his tea bar and diving into a bottomless conversation will lead to some profound thoughts, ideas, and philosophies of living. He was born in China and spent all of his childhood there before moving to Canada at the age of 12. His initial years here were surprisingly supportive and open as an immigrant kid, with the school he attended being diverse and multicultural. He eventually went to university for finance before moving back to Beijing for 4 years, answering an inner call to experience a bigger city. It was here that he discovered tea at a small, nondescript shop. In this conversation, we examine growing up in China and his naturally mischievous personality, his experience as an immigrant, the pullback to Beijing, and the reason he felt the need to live there for a time in his life, the magical and fateful way he discovered tea while living there, building deep and trusting relationships with small-scale tea farmers in Yunnan province, the journey of building his original shop and his current one, the ceremony of tea and why the same tea leaves will taste different depending on who is pouring it, and much more. Please enjoy this wonderful conversation with the wise, inquisitive, and intentional Jude Wang. Jude Wang.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to The Craft.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm really excited you're here.
Thank you.
We're taking one of our tea bar conversations.
That's true.
and bringing it into the pod studio.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, I love connecting how I met my guest, my friend on the other side. And I was telling you, I actually walked by your old location on around like Main and 20th many years ago. And I had wanted to go in because I was so intrigued, but you were closed that day.
That's right.
And then probably fast forward like 4 years later or something, your location moved 2 blocks away from me. So it's a very easy pop in now.
Yeah.
But yes, no, I'm so happy that you and I met, and I just always love our conversations and all the directions that they go in.
Exactly. You just never know. You come in you sit down for a tea, and the conversation just goes on itself.
Yes. And I've met some really interesting people too, like at the bar, like people who've come in that you've introduced me to. It really is a community spot.
That is true. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to when you were a kid. You were born in China.
Yes. I was born in northern China in a very small town. And when I was about 6 or 8, most of my family moved to Beijing. And when I was 12, I came to Vancouver with my parents.
And what are your parents like?
They're just traditional Chinese parents. My dad works with computers. My mom, she was working in actually traditional Chinese medicine or pharmacy. And they left it all and came to Vancouver for me, really.
And is it just you?
It's just me, yeah.
Yeah. So your mother was in traditional Chinese medicine?
Yes.
As a TCM doctor?
She wasn't a doctor. I think she was working with one of the, pharmacies that's who made traditional Chinese medicine. So I think she was trying to sell the traditional Chinese medicine to hospitals in Beijing. So that's what she was doing.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
I'm very fascinated with traditional Chinese medicine. A number of years ago, I started seeing one in the Chinatown here, and the way that he improved my health through various teas really blew my mind, as well as him being able to basically feel my pulse and look at my tongue with his, and he'd feel my pulse with his eyes closed.
Oh, wow.
And he knew what he needed to do to He knew what my liver was doing. He knew
Wow.
exactly what was going on. So it's yeah,
It's true.
it almost seems magical, but you know.
Yeah, they could tell a lot about your body just through the pulse, actually. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm curious like given what you do now with the
Hmm.
teas, was there any influence from watching your mom doing what she was doing?
No, not
No.
really. I was too young to comprehend it.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I grew up here pretty much, so I
Yeah.
don't think it wasn't until um, really like when I moved to Beijing or when I was much older that I was able to appreciate and comprehend and the traditional Chinese medicine or
Yeah.
the wisdom in that.
Mm.
So yeah,
Mhm. And what were you like as a
I
kid
was
and a
just a
teen?
uh, just a kid. I was loved to play. I play a lot of soccer. Um, yeah, I was just I loved. Um, okay, sorry. I think we had to cut this part out. What's the word I'm looking for? When you're like a kind of like a kid that's like a bad kid, not a bad kid, but always get into
Oh, yes.
trouble. What was that
Yeah, you're
word? There's a word.
mischievous.
Mischievous. Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yes.
I was quite a mischievous kid, actually. I would always get into trouble, actually.
Mm. What kind of things were you doing? This is
I think we have to cut
I'm
this part
laughing.
out.
I'm laughing because I can kind of see it, but also kind of not, given you now.
Let's see. I would like skip out of classes and uh, and take my money that my parents would give me and go outside of the like. You're not allowed to do that in the schools back then. You shouldn't sneak out of your like the school is a little
Yeah,
compound.
you're a rebel.
Yeah, yeah. I would sneak out and I would go because there's these little street vendors outside the school. They're selling toys and they're selling like candy. And I would always sneak out and I would like go and buy like candy and toys.
Were
Yeah.
you
What
caught a
else? I
lot?
was very mischievous actually.
Yeah.
I was like rebellious, I think. I
Why
would
do you think you were? Why
I
do you
don't
think you
know.
were?
I don't know actually. I would like challenge the teachers. I would like say if a teacher treated me bad or I didn't like her, I would like I don't know before she start her class, I would draw like a picture of her on the blackboard,
What?
mocking her or something. Yeah, I was really mischievous actually. Like there's actually if you talk to my family, like my parents, I don't
Yeah.
remember too much of it, but if you talk to my parents or my grandparents or my aunts, like they could tell you all these stories about how mischievous I was. I was actually very mischievous. Yeah, I would, and
That's
my grandma used
hilarious.
to tell
I
me,
love it.
um, like just different things. Like I would like race with the buses. Like like in Beijing, like there's all these buses going. I would always, like I would try to race with the bus, and just so many different things about. Yeah, yeah, very
Oh
strange.
man, I love it.
Yeah, I was
I
a
love
pretty
it.
wild kid.
I would never guess that you're a wild child.
I was definitely a wild child, for sure.
So what was it like for you then moving from there to here at 12? Because that's, it's a considerable chunk of life to grow up over there and then have to make a transition into basically a new world.
Yeah, I think I I I don't think I was able to comprehend what happened at the time. I don't think I was able to comprehend what immigration meant. I
Mm.
knew that I used the word. I remember I was telling one of my friends in school back in Beijing. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to immigrate. My parents are immigrating to Canada," but I don't even think I knew what the word immigrant meant.
Mm.
Um, so I came here and I went to 1 year of elementary school here, and I was in East Vancouver actually. It was called Queen Elizabeth. That's the elementary school right on
Mhm.
Clark and 11th.
Mm.
And it was such a multicultural school back then. There were kids from all different places, Sri Lanka, Vietnamese.
Oh, is it the
Uh,
school that's right on the corner?
yes,
Okay, the
yes,
big one.
yes. And I had
Okay,
such a good
yeah.
experience there
Hmm.
because people just kind of just like welcome me in with open arms. Like I remember the biggest challenge obviously was English, but I remember that the kids didn't make fun of me. They would actually teach me. Like they were very patient, and
Mm.
they would teach me English. So I actually had a really really good experience in that school. It
Wow.
just felt because it was so multicultural, it just felt really nice.
Yeah.
Actually,
And
yeah.
maybe also a school of other children who were immigrants or children of immigrants. So maybe there was
Yes.
a compassion and empathy of being
Yes,
new.
for sure. For sure. I just remember so strongly that I had classmates who were from Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
from Vietnam. Like they were all immigrants.
Yeah.
And even I think the kids that were from Vancouver, they were somewhat cool kids because I remember they were wearing like Jordan sneakers back then.
Yeah.
They were also just very nice. Like they didn't make fun of me. They like if I pronounced a word wrong or they would just correct me in a nice way. So that was very surprising. I think back of it very, very fondly right now of the time.
I like that. It's not, I feel like it's not a story you might often hear, from someone who is coming into a country young and going into school.
Yeah, yeah. But it was only there, and then after that, I moved to a different school, and it's and my experience there wasn't as good. I think. Yeah, there was definitely more of groups and exclusion
And it was high school, right?
Actually it was also a elementary school, I believe, but I spent only maybe a few months there.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that time in Queen Elizabeth, Queen Alexandra, was a very good experience. I'm very, very grateful for that experience.
And your love for tea, when did that start?
Actually, I was not a tea drinker. I was drinking tea bags when I was in Vancouver. I was mainly a coffee drinker, of course, just like everybody else. So the tea didn't start until when I was in Beijing. And surprisingly, I actually didn't go into tea, being a tea drinker. It was just by accident, actually.
So you just discovered it?
Yeah. I was in Beijing, and one day I was just walking in the old streets, the old alleyways of Beijing, and I saw this tiny shop and in an old building, and the old buildings in Beijing are the shops look a bit different there, so it's all just concrete, and there's no window, so you can't look in and see what it is, and there was no signage, and it was just a door, so just concrete, a small door in the middle, and the door was covered with plants, no signage at all. And I was like, looks very interesting. It was very mysterious. I wonder what's in there. And so I walked in, and it turned out to be a tea shop, a young lady who was selling pu'erh tea from the hometown of Yunnan. She's from Yunnan. But I think back and I say, if there was actually a signage there that says tea shop or tea, I probably wouldn't have gone in because I was not interested in tea. I wasn't like, oh yeah, like I want to learn more about tea.
Oh, you know what I love about that is you were just telling us about how mischievous you were. And so I went, it must have been that natural kind of like curiosity.
Yes,
or,
exactly. Actually, it was
the rebel in you that was like, I'm going to go here.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
It was definitely the curiosity.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing else. I was just curious about what this place is.
And so we'll take it back just a little bit. So teenage years, and then you ended up studying finance.
Biology and finance.
At UBC.
Yes.
I went there too.
Okay.
And then it was off of that, you went back to Beijing.
Yes.
Because you were saying earlier, pre-recording, that you wanted to see what bigger city life was.
Yeah,
so therefore went back to China.
Yeah. There was just that urge in me that I just wanted to go to a big city and explore and see what's out there. I always thought that Vancouver was a very small city. I guess when you're young, that's what you think. It's too small for you.
Yeah.
But I had no plans. I had no plans. I had no job offerings. I had nothing. I first went to Hong Kong and I stayed there for a few months. I had a friend there, but that was it. I didn't have anything, no plans at all.
Yeah.
And then I stayed in Hong Kong for a few months, and I went to Beijing, and same thing, no plans, no job, like nothing.
Yeah, but family.
Yes, I had family in Beijing. That was very important. Yes. Yes.
And then you decided to be there for how many years? A number of years?
4 years. 4 years. Yeah.
And so what was life? Did you love life in Beijing? Like, did you find what you were seeking when you were there?
But you see, that's the thing. I wasn't seeking anything. I didn't have any preconceptions about what I wanted to do or what I was looking for in Beijing. I just went in there with, I guess, curiosity. I had no idea what to expect. And so life was very different. I think I faced a lot of challenges in terms of culture, because when I first went back, I actually didn't speak fluent Chinese. Like it was okay, it was everyday conversational level was fine, but um, I couldn't express myself very well with the limited Chinese I had.
Right.
But deeper than that, it was the culture. So I was working for a corporate job basically for a huge company, and I actually specifically didn't want to work for a multinational company because in Beijing, a lot of so-called, I mean, I kind of was an expat, if you say, because I'm from Canada, and I spoke perfect English. So most expats or people who goes there would take a job in a multinational company, and people there would speak English. But I specifically didn't want to work for a multinational company. I was like, no, I want to experience China like a completely local Chinese company. People spoke Chinese, and I wanted to experience the real thing. So I was working for a local big company. So the experience there was just wild. I mean, it was the culture. It was just so different. The way that people did things, the way people communicated or collaborated in the company, it was completely different. And I found that very challenging, but I learned so much from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How so? Like if you were going to compare a corporate experience or a company experience there versus here, what would you say are a couple of differences?
I would say it's all about the subtleties there. It's about it's about the, I guess, managing connections, managing people. Um, that is way more important there. It's about subtleties in the Chinese culture. Everything like you shouldn't be expressing too much of yourself. You have to be very careful about what part of you that you expose to other people, what you say, and how you handle relationships. That's very, very important there.
So I imagine there is a lot of like subtleties around respect and
Exactly,
hierarchy and
exactly.
yeah, not unlike say a Japanese culture or Korean culture
Yes,
or
yes,
maybe Asian cultures in general now that I'm saying
yes,
it out
for
loud.
sure. Yes, yes,
And was that difficult for you?
for sure. Because I
Yeah.
think I was taught I grew up here, so uh, I was taught to be direct and straightforward and just say what you think, and never be afraid to express your own opinions. But over there, it's not so much about individual; it's about collective, right? So it's not so much about your opinion; it's about what's best or collectively,
Yeah.
right? And also, I think understanding other people's positions and their opinions. So yeah.
Is that eventually what you brought you back to Vancouver? Was
I guess yes.
cultural things or
Part of
just
it, part of it
wanting to come
was
back?
the cultural, like it was. But I think the majority of it definitely was at the end of 2013 or in fall of 2013. There was that really bad smog that was happening in Beijing. That was the first time that happened, and that was really bad. And I was like, wow, this is. And the sky was gray for most of the days, and I was like, this is really bad. And I think I was also missing the West Coast here because when I was there, I would come back to Vancouver and visit, and I just remembered how much I loved and missed running in Stanley Park, being right by the ocean and being in the forest, and that was only like a 10-20 minute drive.
Yes.
So I really missed that. And in Beijing, that's just not possible. You're not really close. You're not close to the ocean. You're not close to these ancient forests. Of course, there's a lot of you could travel. China's a huge country, and people would travel on the weekends, but you have to take an airplane, and it's a lot of more time commitment. It's just different.
Of course. It's
Yeah.
not at your doorstep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think I really missed that part about Vancouver. So yeah, so that's I decided to come back at the end of 2013.
Yeah, yeah. But then you ended up going back again in April of the next year, and that was
Yes.
your first sourcing trip
Yes.
for the tea, and you were starting to build your relationships with the small scale farmers out there, and you kind of created this nice little bridge for yourself between there and here
It
over the
kind of
years,
just
no?
all worked out. I feel like it was very strange. It happened all very organically because uh, I think when I was in Beijing, when I was planning to come back to Vancouver, I was already thinking about because I was at that time already. So I first went to that little tea shop. I discovered that little tea shop. That was probably in 2011 or 2012.
Okay.
So by the time in end of 2013, I was drinking tea. I was quite a tea drinker then, and I was like, well, where am I gonna get my teas now in Vancouver that I'm gonna move back? There was nothing like this in Vancouver. I knew that there was Chinese tea shops and all that, but none of it was what that experience that I experienced there, like with that shop. Very curated selection of teas, each with their own story, very seasonal. So I was like, okay, maybe I should do this, because tea was such an amazing thing, and it was very interesting. There's so much different teas, so much stories behind it, so much different tastes for different occasions, different moods, and so much to discover and learn. And I said, okay, well, in Vancouver, and in Vancouver at the time, there was coffee bars and wine bars, and I was like, well, why is there not like this for tea?
Right.
So I was like, okay, maybe this is an idea.
Yeah.
And I decided to pursue this once I came back to Vancouver. And so I was like, well, if I wanted to do this, the only way for me to do it was I had to source my own teas.
Right.
Because that was very important to me, that
Yeah.
I didn't want to just buy, I didn't want to be just a tea merchant, just buying tea from wholesalers and sell it. Because there's no shortage of teas from China. But I wanted to have the good stuff, the really special teas that were small scale, craft made by artisans and craftsmen, and from the origin where they're supposed to be from, with the stories and handcrafted by people who still made them according to tradition and heritage.
Right. Yeah, I'm so curious to know, when you went back there and you were starting to build your relationships with the farmers, was it hard to get in there? Because, and this is just me assuming, but if they're, this is what they do, and maybe, their families, or they've been doing this for generations, I imagine that they're pretty careful on who they decide to work with.
For sure. Yes. So it was actually, I think, yes, it's very difficult, because there's the craft tea producers in China. It's a very small group. It's a small community. There's not many of them, and they're, I guess, hard to seek out. And so they're all connected, but they're hard to seek out, because you have so much tea. And China is a huge country. It's huge. There's tea in a lot of different places. So I when I was in Beijing, I actually met my tea mentor. So it was really through her that she introduced me, and she could see the passion in me that I wanted to bring this thing to Vancouver. So she ended up introducing me to these craftsmen, and slowly and over time. And when you meet one of them, then you slowly meet the other people as well.
Right.
They're all kind of connected, even though they're from different places. They're very far apart.
Yeah.
But I guess they're bound together by their shared philosophies and values around tea, and that's why they all know each other. And they visit each other, actually. Sometimes when it's off season, they would actually like travel to the other provinces and visit the other tea farmers.
That's
and just
amazing.
see their tea farms. Yeah.
Oh, it's like a little family.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's so incredible. I was doing a little bit of research, and some of these trees that the leaves come from, it's like they're 800 plus years old, and these farmers have been foraging for picking wild leaves for generations.
Yes,
It's
is very
really
fascinating.
beautiful.
Yes, it is, and it's kind of a vanishing tradition, though, because now and I think that's what really moved me and touched me when I first found out about this type of tea, the small scale tea each tea had its own story. The fact that these people were dedicating their whole life and their energy and time into preserving these very fragile traditions, against all odds, really, because now, I mean, when I was working in China, in a modern society, it's all about prioritizing increased efficiency, increased profits, right? So I think it really touched
Quicker,
me.
more.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? It really moved me that there were still people that were dedicating their whole time to preserving these traditions. So yeah.
And it's important. I mean, you and I have talked about the importance of preserving tradition and how important it is to us as individuals. I mean, we've chatted, and I think part of, my other occupation with the sound therapy and the sound being around for a very, very, very long time, that's in my own small way, preserving sound as medicine, because I think it's really important that those things don't get lost.
Yes.
It's made this world how multifaceted it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So tell me about finding your space, your first space in 2014. And you guys built that all yourselves.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
And you're very specific about wanting a tea bar in there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It actually happened very organically how I found that space. So that space used to be the soap dispensary space, their old space. And I remember I was a customer of theirs. So I would go in there and shop. And I just remember one day I went there and the shop was so busy because it's a small space. It was only about 450 square feet.
Right.
And it was so busy. So I just asked the staff, I said, you guys are so busy now. Are you guys going to be getting moving to a new, bigger location or finding a new space? And at the time I was already looking for a space for the tea shop. But when I asked that question, I wasn't trying to get that space for myself. I was just curious.
Yeah.
And she said, actually, you know what? Yeah, we are actually moving. We found a new, bigger location right across the street from here. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And so, and I said, okay, then I might be interested in this space. And she's asked me to get in contact with the owner, Lynn, and send her an email. So I did, and Lynn sent me back a very nice email. She said, yeah, we're moving out, but there's actually 2 more people in front of you already that's interested in this space. Because it is a very nice neighborhood.
Yeah,
it's
great.
It's a great little neighborhood. There's the Organic Acres. There was all these really nice, beautiful local shops there already.
Yeah.
Coca El Leaf, and Eugene Shu, and there's that little community. And so I said, okay, yeah, there's 2 people in front of me. I'm probably not going to get the space. And then I think a few months later, maybe 2 months later, I got an email all of a sudden from Lynn. She's like, well, here's the contact information for the landlord's agent. The 2 people in front of you, they didn't take the space, so here you go. It's your turn.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, okay. So that was that. So
That's
it happened
so
really
awesome.
organically,
Yeah. Again, it was meant to happen.
Yeah, if you think about your life, I think all the things that happened and that made a difference probably just happened by chance and really organically. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to push so hard to make it happen, which is, I think that's something to contemplate on too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love when things happen. I call it just being in flow. Things just kind of flow in when you need it. And it's almost like a wonderful surprise.
Exactly.
When it does.
I think I was taught, we're all taught that, if we want to make something happen, you got to fight so hard for it. You got to push hard. You have to pull strings and all of that. And then it's hard for you not to not think that way.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's always like, well, if I want this to happen, I got to do this and that. And you make yourself so stressed out.
Yeah.
And then you get so disappointed when things don't work out the way that you want them to.
Such a modern construct, isn't it?
Right? But then you think back about, for my life at least, I think back about all the things that happened that actually made a big difference. I think every single time I didn't really have to do anything. I just had to let go and it just happened. I didn't have to push hard. I didn't have to be so stressed out about it.
Yes.
It was just a surprise.
Yeah, you didn't force it.
Yeah, I didn't force it at all.
Yeah.
So I think that's something very, very interesting.
I was having a conversation with my friend Guillory the other day, and she was also a podcast guest, and just chatting about the notions of what success means, and especially, maybe at this stage of life now that we're older and a little bit older and a little bit wiser. And she said, it's nice to think that the new definition of success could mean, having the abundance, not only financially, but just like other things in your life, being able to pay your bills and having the life that you want, but without the exhaustion. And I was like, oh, yeah, not having to push so hard. Which seems like a very nice notion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in 2018, you moved to your new space at Main and 7th, which is beautiful. I love walking in there.
Thank you.
It's so beautiful and peaceful in its simplicity.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel very transported when I walk in there.
We got the space. We took possession of the space in 2018 in April, and it was just an empty shell space. It was completely just concrete, and we took us 1 full year to build the new location.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were I think that I read somewhere that you guys were making like 3D
Mm-hmm.
models and you're
Oh my
drawing
gosh.
everything out, like tape on the walls.
Yes,
Like you were
yes.
very hands-on in that.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I was too young, too naive.
Yeah.
Uh, I was, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, I think.
Yeah.
But, I mean, same as our, with philosophy, with the tea sourcing, I wanted to be very hands-on. I wanted to be involved in every aspect of it. And so I was actually my own general contractor.
Wow.
Because I had known that I wanted everything in the shop, that all the furniture to be made by Takao Hitomi, which is two amazing Japanese furniture makers.
Yeah.
So I had already known them, and I was very adamant on them crafting everything in the shop for me. All the woodworking was to be done by them. So I thought, okay, so I already had my furniture maker. All I needed now was a drywaller, electrician, a plumber, and a HVAC technician. And I said, well, that's not too many trays to manage. I could probably do that myself, right? And so I was just way too
So
naive.
young and naive.
So young and naive, because I completely didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I learned so much from that, because I
Yeah.
didn't have any construction experience before that. And but I did it. I did it.
Yeah.
It was such a process. But yeah, I remember going to different lumber yards and looking for the plywood that we were going to use for our shop, selecting each one by hand. I was
Yes.
selecting each piece. And we made a decision I was going to stain the wood with a pu'erh tea
Yes,
stain.
pu'erh tea.
And I was going to finish all the wood myself. So I sanded everything, and I finished it with it's called osmos, an oil finish myself. So every single piece of wood in there in the shop, even inside the cabinetries.
So intentional. Everything. Yeah.
It was a lot of work.
I mean, anyone who's listening to this, you must go into the shop and you must sit at the tea bar and have a conversation with Jude. You will feel great when you leave.
Thank you.
I was actually reading more about pu'erh tea, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a kind of tea. It's a variety of fermented tea, right? That
Yes.
comes from Yunnan.
Yes, Yunnan province, southwest
in
China.
Yeah, right. And so it's actually tea that continues to age over time, right? Depending on what microbes and fermentation happens.
Yes, yes, yes. It's a
So
very,
cool
very
and dynamic.
fascinating tea category, actually.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are very interested in pu'erh now, and
Yes.
it's that was the tea. Pu'erh was the first tea that I saw in that tea shop that I went to in Beijing, and I was at the same time also very fascinated, because I've never seen a pu'erh cake before, because the tea is compressed into a little cake form. And so when I first saw it, I was like, this has never seen this before. And I asked her, I said, what is this tea? How is this different from green tea or Japanese green tea that I was drinking at the time? And there's just so much to learn about pu'erh. So pu'erh is actually very different from white or green or oolong or black or any other type of tea. It has to come from Yunnan province, and it's actually, the trees are a different varietal. It's not all the other teas are mostly a tea bush. So even though the tea bushes can grow up to about 8 to 10 feet, the pu'erh tree is actually a tree with a trunk. So it's big, it's huge. It could be.
Yeah.
And some of the pu'erh trees in Yunnan are 500 years old, 600 years old. They're very,
Wow.
very old. And it used to be that that the pu'erh cakes, they would transport it from Yunnan to Tibet or even to Beijing as a tribute for the emperor, and and that's the start of the ancient tea horse road.
Yeah.
So they would pack on these teas onto the horses, donkeys, and they would take months for them to transport it to Tibet or Beijing. And because it would rain and there was heat and humidity when they were traveling on the road, the tea would already become fermented by the time it got to Tibet or Beijing. So that's how the fermented tea came from, or fermented pu'erh.
Right. And then like the way that it's packed, is there a reason why it's packed in a cake other than it being completely easy for transport?
Exactly.
Is that basically
easy to
what
transport,
it is?
Easy to transport, because the tea was crafted in a way that it has to be full leaf.
Yeah.
So then the way that and if you do it in a full leaf, it takes up a lot of volume if you don't
Yeah.
compress it. So they will compress it in these little stone mills, and they will compress it into a cake form. And when you open the cake, when you crack it open, it comes back to a full leaf.
What? Oh my goodness. So when you have a cake, how do you chip away at it? Is there a
So there's
special?
actually a special tool.
Okay, there's a special tool.
that
Yeah,
you
I was like,
use.
do you just take a cheese knife?
Yeah. You could. Sometimes when I'm at a traveling or something, I'm so desperate that I just use a little butter knife or something to try to open it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
there is a specific tool that you use to open or chip away the cake. It's a
Okay.
very
What does it
sharp
look like?
thing.
Oh, it's very sharp.
It's very sharp.
Because I guess it's a very dense kind of
Yes, it's
cake.
very dense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there has definitely been an uptake in me hearing the word pu'erh tea.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to Tim Ferriss's podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been talking a lot about how he's been drinking pu'erh for a long time.
Yeah.
And then there's this brand that he's endorsing right now that
Mm-hmm.
they do, I think it's like crystals,
Mm.
like crystal tea, but it's pu'erh. So
Mhm.
anyways, so yeah, it's becoming definitely more mainstream.
Yeah, I drink pu'erh tea every day. I always start my morning with a raw pu'erh tea.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that it's really grounding for me,
Mm.
and you just feel such life force from the tea, from the
Yeah.
trees, really.
The trees.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, it's so funny that you said that, because as you were talking, I just kept on thinking about how much I really like the woody type
Yes.
teas.
Yes.
You know,
yeah.
that I'm not an expert in any means, but like have come to discover more and more about it over the last probably like year or two.
Mhm.
And yeah, I always find myself going toward the ancient tree
right.
teas.
Yeah, and with
Yeah.
pu'erh tea, it's very interesting because it's really similar to wine because each different village will taste completely different.
Mm.
It has its own very distinct notes, distinct smell, distinct fragrance.
Yeah.
So it's very fascinating. And even if it's two villages from the same mountain range, it will taste completely different. And the price point could be 100 times different, actually.
It's so incredible. I remember when I saw you last, you and I were having a conversation, and we were talking about like the similarities between how you pour your tea and how I do my sound journeys. And you were saying that you could literally be pouring a certain type of tea, and then say Lynn would pour the same tea, but it will taste different.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because you were saying it could matter like what energy you were in.
For sure. Everything.
How you're pouring the water onto the leaves.
Yes.
And it blew my mind, because I didn't even think about that. you know?
Yes. Completely different, actually. It will taste. The same teas, you make it with the same temperature of water, it will taste very different, actually. It really takes on your own personality, I feel like, with tea.
Yeah, there is like a true energetic exchange
Oh, for
between
sure.
you as the
For sure.
pourer and
Yes.
and the pour.
Yes.
Yeah.
It takes on every little detail, I feel like. Everything matters when it
Yeah.
comes to brewing tea. And that's why when you make yourself tea or you share tea with friends, it's really a unique experience.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
putting your love
Yeah.
into it in a way, right? Like
Yeah.
how you're doing it.
Yeah, like Lynn, she would make a tea and it would, because she's like more gentle, the tea would always taste more gentle,
Right.
lighter, I would say.
Yes. Yeah.
And then with me, I could make a light oolong taste like a roasted oolong. Yeah.
Yes. And then just to clarify, Lynn is Jude's business partner. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And watching you guys pour the tea is mesmerizing too, because it feels like just this, you're watching this beautiful ceremony.
So many people have said that. They said
Yeah.
just sitting there and just watching is therapeutic.
Yeah.
Just watching the water pouring in, water pouring out.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
therapeutic.
Yeah, because you're doing other things too. It's not just like tea in the pot and then, but there's a certain way you pour and like.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's many little different utensils that we use.
Yes.
And there's the little teapots and the little teacups and
Even the way
the
your
server.
drainage is.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very, very cool.
Thank you.
So yeah, I hope someday we'll do some sound and tea together.
For sure, we have to.
Yeah.
That'd be a very, very interesting experience.
I think it'd be really, really interesting for sure. Also, you do kombucha, which.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do kombucha
Yeah.
as well.
which is very good. I'll often go in there and be like, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you recommend something? But you use, is it for your tea too that you filter all the water with the Japanese homok?
Binchotan, yes.
Binchotan,
Yes,
yes.
Binchotan. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So it's when you get into that caliber of tea, it's very important that the water you use is pure because really there's nothing else that's going into the tea. It's literally tea leaf and water.
Yeah.
So the Chinese have always said that to make the good tea, the best teas, three things are very important: the tea, the water, and the ware. So what you're using to make the tea, the material, whether it's clay or porcelain or it's very important. Yeah. So we purify our water with the Japanese binchotan, the charcoal.
So what's the difference between like something that is in ceramic versus porcelain?
So everything matters because the glazing, right? What glaze they use. For example, there's some glazes that they use with just completely natural material, and it really helps to soften the water, and also the temperature of the firing, right? So if it's fired at lower temperature versus higher temperature, the tea will taste different. The higher temperature ones will make the tea taste better, more pure.
Yeah.
And then obviously you're going from, let's say, porcelain ceramic to a clay, and that will taste completely different too because clay is completely unglazed, so it will absorb the tea, the aroma, the fragrance, and the oils from the tea, and over time it starts giving back to the tea, and it acquires a patina on it as well. Yeah. So everything matters in tea, and I think that's also very, very beautiful.
It is really beautiful. Again, there's so much intention, you know. What has tea taught you about who you are, or what has it brought out of you in the years that it's come into your life?
I think tea has taught me about simplicity and just appreciating the subtleties, the hidden beauties of life, because it is so simple. What you're making is basically just tea leaves and water, but it really helps you to slow down. It really helps you to be with yourself, and by doing that, you see more, you feel more, and you create an open space for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. It's like an act of meditation.
It is very meditative.
Yeah. And like you said, an act of creating space for yourself, which is something that a lot of people say they don't have. And it really doesn't take too long to make yourself a cup,
right? It really
right?
doesn't. It could be.
Do you think like 10 to 15? Like
15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes a day.
Right, yeah.
That's it. And I think it's also taught me to be just curious and not to have any ideas or preconceptions about things, to assume things.
Yeah.
Right? Just be open.
Yeah. Does it excite you when you pour a tea and, you know, it just like it tastes a certain way and it was like unexpected?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm always excited to try a new tea or like a new pour from a new mountain, because it really does transport you to a different place.
Yeah.
You know, tea is so much about the nuances. It's about how it makes you feel and how it makes you feel afterwards too. It's not just about, the tasting notes, right? So it's not just about, I'm tasting strawberries or apricots or whatever.
Yeah.
It's about the whole experience. Yeah.
I agree. Is there a new generation of tea farmers that are cropping up, or is it truly kind of a dying art that, you know, people should look at supporting through discovering tea?
I think it's definitely it is a dying art, but at the same time, there are a new generation, but very limited number, of course, of young people that they see and they love that craft, the heritage, and they really want to do their part to help and preserve it, and try their best to try to pass it down to the generations. So there is, but it's a slow process. But I think some young people nowadays, they go to school in the big cities, and after they get their degrees, they want to go back to their hometown, and so that's very beautiful.
It's not all cracked up to be sometimes, right? Yeah, the degree and the big city job.
Yeah, they're finding that what they do in their hometown could be very, very fulfilling as well.
Yeah, right. So if someone wanted to get more into tea and bring this to their palate, what do you recommend they do first?
I think they just have to be curious. They just have to be curious, and they just have to taste, to just try different things and taste different teas, and just taste it and or go and experience it.
Right.
Like, maybe go to a tea bar, or just sit and experience the tradition, experience the whole I guess tea ceremony, seeing the pouring and trying different teas.
Right. Yeah. I guarantee anyone who comes to Cultivate and watches it, you will definitely be hooked for sure. So you have a couple of other things in the works, not fully formed, but nonetheless exciting. In Mount Pleasant, you've got a space.
Yes, yes. So we have a space in the building that's called Habitat, right on Broadway and Guelph, and it's a really quite a cool space. The developer has activated the back lane, so we're on the corner of Guelph and the back lane, and facing to the back lane, it's you can actually open the windows completely, so that people can dine or drink something outside and look into the space, and it's just much more dynamic that way, which is more like in Europe or in Asia.
Yes.
So that's quite exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. When you were telling me about that earlier, I just got really, really fuzzy inside.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
love when just things like that start coming to life. And I feel like Vancouver is in this very interesting space right now, where it's like on the cusp of really coming alive, I think.
It's true.
Yeah, I kind of feel it in the air and
Yeah.
in the conversations that I'm having with people like yourself or other friends who are, fully entrenched with like wanting to drive culture here. I think people are really excited.
Yeah, there's a bubbling of ideas and energy, I think.
Yes, I agree. So continuing more of these conversations for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a couple more questions. When you look back at your younger self and you look at your life now, could you imagine like that you would have been on this trajectory?
Definitely not. No, for sure not. Yeah, because I've always thought that I was, when I was in university, and I was more a corporate person. I was I wanted to be busy. I wanted to be doing many things. But now I'm just running a tea shop. And right now, currently, I'm trying to not do things really, to not do many things at all, and just let go and just learn more about myself, right? So I could not have imagined that for sure. Yeah, which is it's quite the opposite, really.
Yeah. I mean, hearing this, learning this about you, I even feel surprised that you were once wanting that, fast, big city life, but we all evolve.
That's true. And I think there's we are all have different sides of us. We're all very quite. I'm kind of more of a polarizing person. So yeah, but just learning about yourself, and I think that's very important.
Yeah, no, for sure, I agree. And the final question: with what it is you do, what do you want to leave behind in the world?
I think it just is a space to create a space for people just to be curious, about things, be open and curious. Same with this is the tea. Same is with the tea shop. So you don't have to be a tea drinker to come to the shop, because I got into tea not because I was a tea drinker. I was just open and curious, and so you never know what you're going to discover if you're just curious and open. You never know where that's going to take you, because tea is not. It's kind of a connecting part. It's through tea you might discover something else. You might there's so much that's connected to tea. Learning about yourself, feeling connected to nature, or others exactly. Through the conversations that you have, you develop empathy and compassion for other people, and you hear about other people's ideas and their dreams and what they're doing. or it could go into, I don't know, learning about the art of incense or music or calligraphy or whatever it is, right? So it's, I think that's it. Just be open and curious. Yeah.
I think that's a great way to live life, and something that we often kind of lose along the way as we become adults.
Yeah, because we have such strong preconceptions and such strong beliefs, and it's very rigid, right?
Yeah.
It's very rigid, and I think when we're that rigid, we really miss out on a lot of things. Yeah, we don't even see things anymore. We don't hear things anymore because we're so caught up in our own beliefs and preconceptions.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Stay curious, everyone.
Yeah.
And also go to Jude's shop and have a tea. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you and the conversations that we have.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, no, it's always a great conversation with you.
Always.
You never know what we're going to get into. Yeah, there's many
I know.
More, many,
we never
more.
do. We don't.
We never know what the conversations lead to. You know? Yeah.
Always good conversations and definitely some good laughs.
That's
in
for
between.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
If you enjoyed that last conversation, be sure to check out more episodes of The Craft on Spotify and guest photo galleries on the website at wearethecraft.com. Thanks again for listening.